In this video, I'm going to be giving you a tour of my entire LEGO studio, showing you all the updates I've made over the past year and a half, including a brand new display, new filming area, and new build area. So let's go ahead and get started with the build area just out here. This is the main build area of my LEGO studio. There are 4 large tables here, and currently I've got a 3D printer set up because I've got a sponsorship coming up for that on the main channel. So be on the lookout for that video later this month. But basically, this entire section here is meant for large-scale mock building. It also doubles as a fantastic area for sorting and really just sitting around this table and working on stuff with friends. I've done a number of large mock projects in this space, including Mandalore, Christophsis, and my castle, and probably a couple other things that I'm forgetting at this point. And then moving over to this area here, this is a desk that I often sit at to do a lot of my building. One of the things that's nice about the positioning of this area here is that just across the room on the opposite side here, we have a living room. And so I can sit and I can kind of watch TV and stuff while I'm working on mock building or set building or whatever stuff that I'm doing that doesn't actually require me to be filming at the time. So I really enjoy being in this space. It's very collaborative, it's interactive, and honestly, it's just been so nice to have this whole setup for working together with other people. The next thing to cover in this space is the storage. There are hundreds of thousands of parts in this room, and I've had to develop new storage systems consistently as I've grown my collection. And so a lot of this here is individual piece types that I've sorted out, but also there are different drawers that work as a individual spot for a part. And then if we have more of a part than can fit in that drawer, we've come up with a backlog system, which has been super helpful. So there are some drawers that you might see as we go around the room with a number and a letter on them, and that corresponds to the backlog library, which I'll show you in just a second. But basically, the underside of this entire table section here is filled with large Sterilite drawers that are just full of parts. I've accumulated quite a few parts over the past couple of years between parting sets out and also just making lots of bricklink orders and other things like that. So if you kind of look down here, you can see that we've got a bunch of foliage stuff. Things are sorted by color and general part type, but more things like gray pieces over here are generally sorted and labeled a little bit better because these are very, very commonly used parts in the types of builds that I like to do. So that's kind of this section here. And then behind my build area, I have decided to go ahead and do more of these shallow storage drawers. I kind of wasn't a fan of these for a while, but as my collection's gotten much larger, it's helped to have more drawers to separate things out further. And so the most commonly used pieces in my collection, which is dark gray and light gray, are mostly situated here. And it's really helpful to be able to have a lot of this stuff within arm's reach as I'm sitting here building, especially with doing more mech content recently. I've been doing a lot of these builds sitting right here, and being able to access the clips, bars, brackets, and all the things that are used commonly in those builds has been super helpful. So over on this section here, this used to be a large display shelf area. I had a minifig case on the back wall, but as the parts collection has continued to grow, there's become a need for just more storage. And so I picked up a ton of these large Sterilite drawers. I think that Brixie uses a similar system to this. I might have seen one of his videos a couple years ago and kind of copied that idea, but this has been super helpful. So this is where the backlog section starts off. And so if you see on one of the smaller drawers like this here says A13, if you want to find more of that piece, you just walk over to here, and then you can go down the side and find A13. And sure enough, inside that drawer, there's more of these parts if I need access to them for a larger build or something. So that's been really helpful, and it's a nice way to keep some parts on access and kind of have stuff away until I actually need it. But basically, we have like the backlog, and then there's a couple of other colors here that I don't use quite as often these days that I've moved over to this section. It's kind of an ongoing process with storage and sorting and all of that, and you sort of develop your system as you go. And so this is something I'm still in the process of trying to get completely sorted. So for example, in this section here, there are a bunch of pieces that have been parted out from sets that are just color separated right now and need to be sorted into part type to go into their final home of whatever storage section they go in over there. And then moving into the larger drawers here, I've got A couple Bionicle lots that I picked up over the past year. These parts have been super useful for mechs and stuff. And then just random things like some sets that I don't want to part out or don't want to sell but might want to keep for future mocks. I will bag them up or wrap them in bubble wrap or whatever, stick them in these drawers, or just gear. Or, you know, I'm sure a bunch of people who do large scale mock building have a drawer like this with a bunch of Ziplocs from Bricklink orders. They really do come in handy. And then large plates and a bunch of bricks and stuff. So one last thing that I want to cover real quick before we get into the other room is just the storage solutions that I'm using. So I've got Craftsman drawer organizers here. These are from Lowe's if you want to pick them up for yourself. And then on the other side here, this is the other primary thing that I use, which is the Sterilite drawers. These you can get at Walmart or Amazon. I will have links to all of these things in the description section. And that'll be for anything to do with storage, gear, or whatever else that I think might be helpful to you guys in this video. And if I missed something or you want to know where I got something from, drop a comment down below and I'll try to reply to you and let you know where you can pick it up. So this entire section here is actually brand new from when I did my last room tour on my main channel about a year and a half ago. It has been super nice to have this space, and it's allowed me to kind of segment things out so I have dedicated areas for doing certain tasks. So let's take a look at this display shelf area here first. So this has been the backdrop that you guys see in most of my videos, and I kind of wanted to have a spot that I can rotate things out as I feel like it and just keep the background changing and interesting for my videos. I think that these shelves are great. These are from Ikea. They're the Ivar shelves, and my wife very kindly went and stained these for me, which was great to give them a bit of a darker wood look, which I think looks really nice. And so I'm just gonna kind of take you guys from right to left here, and we'll look at everything that's on these shelves, and then we'll move on to the display on the other side of the room. Starting on the top right here, we have the Octoptara droid, which is from my Christophsis mock. This is a model that was developed by somebody else, but I've modified it to kind of make it my own. And then down here on the left-hand side, we've got the first vehicle that I ever designed, which was made for a Hoth mock that I did last year in January. I have my trophy from winning the terrain section of the clone-based building challenge against Coconut Brick Studios, SW Bricks, and Rich Boy J. And then something that Coconut sent me from his Coruscant mock, which is super cool. 3D printed Snorlax from one of my friends in Thailand, shout out Josh. And then this Sabine speeder here, which is a custom design by Grinding Bricks. This shelf here is just kind of a spot where I like to keep stuff that I know that I want to keep put together and they have memories associated with them, which is super fun. Moving over to this section here, we've got a sealed Clone Walker battle pack, a 332nd Black Series helmet, and then the Sith and Jedi holocrons from Disney. And then in the center area, I've got a couple of my favorite mechs. This one is a Monkey Kid mech, which is pretty neat. This is the first mech modification that I ever did, which was for a Star Wars video, and then an Ice Planet mech that I did a little bit earlier this year. And then on the left side here, we've got kind of like a little Bionicle section. I am a big fan of the Toa Nuva specifically, and so I was able to find this 3D printed mask on Etsy, I think it was. It's got some LEDs in the eyes, which is kind of neat, and I just think it looks cool here, and it's a nice little section to just remember some of my childhood, which is kind of fun. Down below that, we have the UCS AT-AT with a couple other Hoth-related things. The shelf below that's just a bunch of random sets that I don't really have another spot for, so we can kind of skip over that. But we have the M5 Builds gunship with some of the figures that we used in the Mandalore mock, my Space Baby mech from a recent video with another smaller Space Baby mech, and then moving to the right, we've got the AV7 cannon from Brick Vault, two ATRTs from Brick Vault, my gunship modification from the Coruscant Guard gunship, and then this Swamp Speeder, which is also a Brick Vault model. And then on the bottom shelves that are not lit up here, this is just kind of set storage for the moment. So we got a couple ATTEs and then some N1 Starfighters. So on the other side of the room here, this is all brand new. I actually just finished this like a month and a half or 2 months ago, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. These are Ikea Billy bookcases. I'm sure you've seen other people using these bookcases as well. They're quite popular, and they have glass doors on them, which is great because it helps to keep the dust out. I need to go through and add some weather stripping in here at some point to stop dust from getting in there, but for the most part, it's been pretty much dust-free up until now. So we'll see how that goes over time. But going through these cases here, I wanted to have a second section to film stuff, and I haven't actually put it to use yet, but I thought it would be nice to have a little build table here. And one of the nice things with this spot is that it works really well when I'm filming stuff to have like a spot to put sets as I'm kind of going back and forth and moving things around. But I also want it to be a section where I could do maybe like a podcast setup if I want to have a friend over and we can both sit here and have a decent backdrop for our conversation. But let's go ahead and take a look at all of the things on these shelves. So on the left-hand side here, we've got a couple of different things. Starting at the top, there's the real grade Gundam Amatsumina. This is something that I've gotten into more over the past 6 months, and I've really been enjoying building Gundam. Below that is a display of a bunch of custom minifigures. There are things from a bunch of different customs creators here. I'm not going to name all of them, but I'll have a nice B-roll shot here for you guys to see what all of those are. Below that, we've got more Gundam stuff, and then even more Gundam stuff down on the shelf here. Moving up to the top, I have all of my convention bricks from different conventions, and also bricks that I've traded with friends and stuff like that. And then a couple of fun minifigures. Moving down from there, we kind of have a separatist shelf with brick vault models, and then this one's actually just, I think, the 2013 Lego set. And then below that, we have Anakin's Jedi Starfighter and Obi-Wan's Jedi Starfighter with the hyperdrive ring. This is probably one of my favorite set designs that they've ever done. And then below there, we have the E-Wing and Darth Vader's shuttle. Up top, we have the Darth Vader mech that I did in one of my recent videos. And then just a bunch of the helmets from the helmet collection. I actually still have the Commander Cody and Vader helmets that I'll probably stick up here eventually and end up moving this thing or taking it apart or something. And then below there, we have the Naboo Swamp set, which was actually my first ever Lego set. So I like to keep that one on display. And then I still haven't figured out what I want to put on these bottom two shelves, so I just kind of threw stuff on there. Up at the top, we have the Dagobah Swamp, a ATTP, and then this is the micro scale model that we came up with for the Mandalore collaboration from earlier this year, my modified T6 Jedi Starfighter, or Jedi Shuttle, whichever one it is. And then we've got some Mandalorian Starfighters, pre-Vizsla, and then a Playscale AT-AT. So this section of the room is where I do most of my filming and a lot of my editing as well, actually. And so I've got this table here. It goes up and down to different heights for filming things, which is very convenient. I use the Sony a7 IV with the Sigma 24-70 lens for just about everything. And then I also have this macro lens here, which is the Sigma 105, I think. This is fantastic for getting close-up shots of minifigures. Really love that lens. And then the Shure SM7B for recording all of my audio. Moving over to this section here, I've got a couple of brick shell cases. I ended up liking these quite a bit more than the Wicked Brick case that I got because they have magnets in the corners. And the Wicked Brick case that I have had screws. So if you ever want to access any of your minifigures, you have to take the screws out, which is super inconvenient if you ever use your figures like I do. And then below that are these two drawers that are just full of minifigures. These are fig storage. So we've got custom figures. And then in this drawer, we have Phase 1 clones, Phase 2 clone troopers, and then Imperials, and then a bunch of other random stuff throughout there. So it's nice to kind of have a dedicated section to keep all of those sorted, but also if I need to pull out a minifigure to take some shots of it or something like that, they're easily accessible, which is very convenient. In this corner of the room, I've got my Wicked Brick case that I used to keep a lot more figures in. I actually want to close this up and get a bunch of figures in there that I don't need access to, but I want to have on display. So that's a weekend project at some point probably. But up here we have the Executor Star Destroyer. We've got a couple more. These are, I think, all Clone Army Customs minifigures. A Mosaic, and then my Luke's X-Wing mech from last year. We've also got this banner over here. This I picked up at Brickworld Chicago last year, and I'm a big fan of it still. I think it's super cool to have this in my collection. And then kind of down in the corner here, it's just a bunch of more Gundam. So in the last section of the room over here, I've got another shelf. This is kind of less so for display and more for storage, because I've got like some video games, Blu-rays, DVDs, whatever, and then a couple of my favorite Bionicle in here as well. It just seemed like a nice spot to put a shelf that would fit perfectly there. So that has been super helpful to have that space. And then moving into here, this is the Backlog Closet. I try not to let myself go over this space here, but this is full of sets that are all for future videos. I have plans for just about everything that's been purchased in here. And so I try to make sure that I don't go beyond this, and if it gets too full, I usually end up parting things out, selling them, or whatever I need to do to cut back on that. That should just about do it for this room tour video. I hope I was able to show you guys everything that you might have wanted to see. And really, this was just something that I wanted to document because I'm gonna be moving next year, and all of this is gonna get torn out, moved to another place, and it's probably gonna be pretty different, but it's something that I am excited for. Let me know if you have any questions in the comment section down below. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I hope you have a good one.